Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Terre, Haute. This congregation welcomes all people, regardless of their age, religion, race, nationality, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or anything else that has been used to divide people. We are a group of people with our own opinions, our own ideas, our own dreams. But we share ideals. We share a common belief in a liberal religion. In our discussions, we may disagree with each other, but we must always remember that what unites us is stronger than what separates us. We must always end the service aware of the love that we have for each other.
That we will share this morning is the second one. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations points us towards something beyond inherent worth and dignity, which was the first principle. It points us to the larger community. It gets at collective responsibility. It reminds us that treating people as human beings is not simply something we do one-on-one, but something that has systemic implications and that can inform our entire cultural way of being. Reverend Emily Gage, Unity Temple, Chicago. Our opening words are number 417 in the back of your hymnal. For the beauty of the earth, this spinning blue-green ball, yes, Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live, welcome us.
Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds you cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dream eternal, fears infernal, haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts, take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art.
Rather than the transitional words in the hymnal, I'm going to share some that were shared to me by Sister Jeanne. I wanted to share a little more about her as an introduction. Also, we've included some of that in your order of service. There was some in the midweek notes, but she has had a lifetime not only teaching science, which is going to inform your talk on climate change, as in the context of our spiritual life and in the context of transformation. But as she shared with me, that her real passion has been on justice. And she's shared that she was motivated particularly by words of Jesus, that his mission was to bring good news to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, and to deliver those who are crushed. So with that, I would like to invite Sister Jeanne to come up here and share her words of wisdom with us. Thank you.
Well, good morning. When I was asked to speak here today, I really debated about what I might want to say. But I knew that whatever I said, I was going to be among like-minded people who believe that we need to put our own beliefs and values into action. And so I decided to share some tidbits from 3 theologians whose writing about ecology and theology have had a profound influence on my own life, because they stretched my thinking not only about theology and the climate crisis, but also about other justice issues. Now, somehow I have to tell you, I think I'm preaching to the choir, because I think what I'm going to say is probably going to be better received among all of you because of your worldview than many other religions. In fact, I wonder how many of my own sisters would embrace what I say today. Someday I'll find out. And before I start, I want to tell you I'm not a theologian. As a Sister of Providence, however, I've done a fair amount of reading of theology, and it has certainly informed my life and my beliefs. So if any of you are theologians, please accept my limitations. I'm also not a scientist. I studied math and physics, undergrad and graduate level, but that was 45 years ago, and a whole lot has changed in physics in the last 45 years. So just bear with me. The theologian who I read about 30 years ago, his name was Thomas Berry, and he was a theologian and a scientist. And so somehow he touched my heart because I did have that background. He provided some great insights about the role of theology in saving the planet. At the outset, he described what's happening now as not just some transformations of historic nature or simply another cultural change, but he said what's happening with the planet now is actually negating hundreds of millions, if not billions of years of development of Earth, and that we humans have actually changed the structure of the Earth, its chemistry, its biosystems, its geology, the ozone layer, the list goes on. According to Berry, we humans have set into motion forces that are extinguishing major life systems on this planet that began 66 million years ago. He proposed that just as the planet is changing with a rapidity that is unparalleled in its recent existence, so humans have to change in the same way. And I think significant for all of us who are here today, Berry believed that religious congregations need to be a significant part of that guiding force in reshaping how we think. And I'm going to say to you, I think your congregation is on the cutting edge of that. He cautioned that to do so, we need to change on an order of magnitude that we haven't changed. And I would probably put the Catholics among that group, being quite honest. And as I say, I think you all are taking the lead here. He laid out several religious concepts that he thought had to do with how humans treat Earth. And among those were revelation, our conception of God or the divine, and then also the concept of election, or where we humans fit into the world order. I started to address all three, and I gave up on that early on because we'd still be here next week at this time. So I decided to look just at the concept of election and where the humans fit in the world order. But first, I want to make just one small note about our current understanding of the origins of the universe. According to the new cosmology, as hard it is for some people to swallow, we now believe that the universe had a precise beginning and that it's gone through a sequence of differentiating transformations that have led from lesser to greater complexity and greater modes of consciousness. So what about this principle of election? Well, for Barry, those ascending modes of consciousness in the universe and the rise of spiritual community are related. He says, in fact, that the universe itself is the most basic expression of community. And in fact, the universe itself is the ultimate sacred community. That there's literally one family, one bonding in the universe because everything came from the same source. That we are literally born as a community. The trees, the flowers, the insects, every living thing are bonded together as a community of life. And because that's so, he sees an absurdity in what Christians call the principle of election. He said that he thinks that the devastation of the planet is really due to that principle of election, and that as long as humans see ourselves as particularly or specially elected, there won't be a sacred community, at least not a one that's adequate enough to change the world. That we're genetically more than just cousins to everything else, that we actually have an identity with them, and that we need to change how we're looking at our place in the structure. Pope Francis said likewise in his document Laudato Si that lots of people are reading or have been over the last 5 years. He says, "Sister Earth now cries out to us because of the harm we have inflicted on her by our irresponsible use and abuse of the goods with which God has endowed her. We have come to see ourselves as lords and masters entitled to plunder her at will." This is where I think some of my sisters would have some difficulty. He also believes that we've misinterpreted the biblical account of creation story. That in the book of Genesis, yes, God gives dominion of humans over all the earth. And Francis says we have to reject that notion of our being created in God's image and given dominion over earth, that it does not justify our domination over earth and other creatures. He says it was all taken out of context. And if you keep reading the Genesis story, it goes on to say that we are told to till and keep the garden of the world. That means that we're supposed to cultivate, care for, preserve, and protect all of creation. So, far from being a situation of domination, it implies really quite the opposite. That in fact, that we're in relationship, in mutual responsibility between humans and nature. Francis noted, if we approach nature and the environment without openness to awe and wonder, if we no longer speak the language of fraternity and beauty in our relationship with the world, our attitude will be that of masters, consumers, ruthless exploiters, unable to set limits on our immediate needs. The third theologian, Sally McFagg, contends that it's not only that principle of election that has caused humankind to be so focused on the comfortable life, but that it's also our economic system, which operates from the value of self-interest of human beings, that everyone will act to maximize his or her own interest, and in doing so, all will actually benefit. She says that in this worldview, two values are missing if we want to have the entire planet in mind: the just distribution of profits from Earth's resources and the ability of the planet to sustain those resources. She says, within this worldview, human beings are pictured as separate from one another and somewhat isolated from Earth. That is, they are only externally related to both. Along the way, we have lost the concept of the individual within community, not only within the human community, but also within the planetary community. So for all three of those theologians, that whole idea of domination or power over are at the heart of the ecological crisis. That somehow we humans have treated election as permission to have free reign. We continue to make choices about use of Earth's resources and about consumption in ideas that are founded in a worldview that we are better, we have a right, we are superior, that we get to call the shots. I believe that if we look for a moment or two, we'll realize that domination and power over are at the heart of many justice issues. The theologians whom I've quoted today have clearly painted that picture, the connection between human domination and climate change. But racism is certainly a result of humans' beliefs that some groups are superior to others. It's not just about the domination of humans in the universe community, it's about the domination of certain humans within the human community. In the United States, it's a color issue. Whites discovered America, and so therefore some believe we have the right to dominate, to ravage the land, to benefit at great cost to others. And that domination has caused untold hurt to Native Americans, African Americans, Asians, Hispanics, and other non-whites. In other countries, it's a territorial issue. In Taiwan, Vietnam, many South American countries, people from one part of the country are considered better or worse from another part, solely by virtue of where they live. Ironically, in many cases, it's the indigenous people who are most harmed, who are considered inferior because they're not as developed as others. And then there's the gender issue. For far too long, people who are considered not straight are considered less than. And yet there is recent scientific research, both in the areas of neuroscience and psychological science, that has refuted the idea of gender binary classification. So how long will it take the human community, the church community, to catch up to the science and to welcome anyone, anywhere on the spectrum as friend and neighbor? I dare say even our own political system is in a power over structure. That at least from my vantage point, over the past several years, maybe decades, Government seems more concerned with who holds the power than with treating one another as equals and looking for the common good. And so I ask, is this the way we want to live our lives? What if? What if we didn't consider ourselves specially elected, as Barry and others have suggested? What if we looked at the birds and the trees, the air and the oceans as kindred to us? What if we really truly believed we are interrelated and interconnected? What if we really truly believed that we're related to every other human? Black, yellow, white, red. And what if we truly believe there's nothing wrong with someone who identifies as lesbian, gay, queer, trans, non-binary? What if we truly believed that research? And what if we lived in a country in which the political system was not always making someone the winner and someone the loser, but was rather about a win-win for the common good? Or what if we put a different spin on being elected? I think maybe we have been elected. By virtue of our greater mode of consciousness in the evolutionary cycle, I think maybe we have been elected to be the ones to carry out the responsibility to care for the rest of creation. I wonder what Thomas Berry would say to that. Can't ask him because he's passed on. The list goes on, and sometimes it seems so overwhelming and so difficult for those of us who want to make a difference. And you in this congregation subscribe to that, I know. But what's that they say, that it takes only about 11% of a population to change a mindset or a worldview? I have to tell you, I have so much hope because I see a generation much younger than younger than many of us in this church, stepping up to the plate. Their energy, their voices, their activism will serve to reinforce and reinvigorate the energy that some of us elders have tried to create for years. But we can't leave them alone in this work. They need our energy, our voice, to continue to build a network of people who subscribe to the belief that all of creation is bonded as one sacred community. We can't give up. We can't delegate it to a future generation because the world is still beckoning us to be a transformative presence in this world. Clarissa Pinkola Estes says it well in a letter she wrote. We were made for these times. I will read an excerpt, and I've brought copies for those of you who may wish a copy. My friends, do not lose heart. We were made for these times. I have heard from so many recently who are deeply and properly bewildered. They are concerned about the state of affairs in our world now. Ours is a time of almost daily astonishment and often righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized, visionary people. You are right in your assessments. The luster and hubris some have aspired to, while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking. Yet I urge you, I gentle you, I ask you, please do not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Most especially, do not lose hope. Most particularly because the fact is that we were made for these times. Yes, for years we've been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. I grew up on the Great Lakes and recognize a seaworthy vessel when I see one. Regarding awakened souls, there have never been more able vessels in the waters than there are right now across the world. And they are fully provisioned and able to signal to one another as never before in the history of humankind. Look out over the prow. There are millions of boats of righteous souls on the waters with you. Even though your veneers may shiver from every wave in this stormy sea, I assure you that the long timbers composing your prow and rudder come from a greater forest. That long-grained lumber is known to withstand storms, to hold together, to hold its own, and to advance regardless. In any dark time, there's a tendency to veer toward fainting over how much is wrong or how much is unmended in the world. Do not focus on that. There's a tendency, too, to fall into being weakened by dwelling on what is outside your reach or what cannot be. Do not focus there. That is spending the wind without raising the sails. We are needed. That's all we can know. And though we meet resistance, we more so will meet great souls who will hail us, love us, and guide us, and we will know them when they appear. Didn't you say you were a believer? Didn't you say you pledged to listen to a voice greater? Didn't you ask for grace? Don't you remember that to be in grace means to submit to a voice greater? Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world, will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward the enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold in difficult times. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up flares, builds signal fires, causes proper matters to catch fire. To display the lantern of the soul in shadowy times like these, to be fierce and to show mercy toward others, both are acts of immense bravery and greatest necessity. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you would help to calm the tumult, this is one of the strongest things you could do. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. The reason is this. In my innermost bones, I know something as you do. It is that there can be no despair when you remember who came to earth, who you serve, and who sent you here. The good words we say and the good deeds we do are not ours. They are the words and deeds of the one who brought us here. In this spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. Thank you for having the courage to move out into the rough waters. You are a gift to this Terre Haute community. Thank you.
For the earth forever turning, 163. Our closing words are number 693. And now, may we have faith in life to do wise planting, that the generations to come may reap even more abundantly than we. May we be bold in bringing to fruition the golden dreams of human kinship and justice. This we ask, that the fields of promise become fields of reality.
May the blessed